Give us a high-level overview of who you are and what you're doing right now and how you came to this point in your career.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm Yifan. I would describe myself as definitely a founder. I went to Harvard undergrad and then started my first company right after graduation. I've actually never worked for anyone. I started two companies.
Okay.
My first one was one of the top mobile fitness apps in the first wave of iPhone apps called GymPact. It was an incentives app, so charged people for not exercising, paid people if they did exercise. I moved out to SF for that company, raised from Khosla, Max Levchin, really cut my teeth in consumer tech. And then I started a second company called Loftium, also B2C in the affordable housing space. And that one was acquired by Firehose here in Seattle. So now I'm on the investor side of the table. I am a managing director at AI2 Incubator. So I get to invest in companies, really early stage AI founders, and work with them all the way through to seed rounds.
Yeah. So you have experience kind of like doing the whole the startup stuff, the consumer stuff, and now you're doing the investor stuff. And as an investor, you have to have, especially at AI2, you have to have a strong opinion about where the AI space is going in the app space. So how do you see that market? It's been a while, a few years, and I'm sure the next few years will be a while as well. But what is your experience been doing the investing in the last couple of years, and how do you kind of see that market kind of evolving?
Yeah, the investment side has been pretty wild. I think you have to be opinionated as both a founder and as an investor.
Right.
I would say, right now, the last 6 months, I think the standards for traction for AI startups has really gone up, right?
Okay.
It used to be like last year or earlier this year, you could have mostly a story or just a team. But because it's gotten so easy to build with AI, I think, especially for but even for the seed rounds, right? Investors are starting to ask for very rapid, easy ramp ups to like a million ARR before they'll even take a look. And even at the seed rounds, investors are asking these questions now of why are you even raising, right? If you're not, seeing that type of traction.
Okay.
I think this is because there's been so many companies, right? Like the Lovables, the Cursors, the Gleans of the world that have just ramped up super fast. And I have a lot of thoughts about this. So happy to go into it.
Well, tell us more. What are your thoughts about this traction thing? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense?
Yeah. So first of all, I think I entered into both the AI and investing space at a very interesting time. So I sold my company Loftium in early 2023, and I joined AI2 as an investor in mid-late 2023.
Right.
I do think that 23 was a really interesting year for AI. Right. We had the ChatGPT moment already. And we actually had Mike Vernal from now Conviction, previously Sequoia, come and do a roundtable with our founders recently. And he mentioned this analogy to the mobile era that I resonated with. Basically, in the mobile era, right, you had the iPhone come out, and then the first wave of very obvious apps that were enabled by the iPhone that came out, right? So like the but beyond that, right, the WhatsApps, the Instagrams, the Ubers, right, that were clearly made possible by the iPhone. Then you had the next wave of applications in the 2011, 2012 era, right? That were not quite as obvious. Some of them were inspired by the successes of the Ubers. So those were, like the DoorDashes or the Instacarts, right? So this era of AI is going to be very similar, I think. I very much agree with him, right? Where 2023, I entered into what I think is the heyday, right, of these types of LLM, right, inspired, right, wide swaths of industries that could be disruptable by AI that were very obvious. So things like customer support and sales and coding, right, legal. I was very happy to enter at that time because then we were able to place bets in these massive areas that you just can't anymore, right? Because it's way too crowded and dominated. So things like mortgage, right, with Friday Harbor, things like immigration with KCM. We did a couple of other legal tech plays, right? We did accounting, right, auditing company Materia that was acquired by Thomson Reuters, like within 2 years. So that era, I think, that vintage of companies is going to be very interesting. Now, sitting here in late 25, I think now we're in the non-obvious era, right? So we are looking at things that might be inspired by that first wave, but it's not quite as like a clear, right? This is obviously going to be disruptable by LLMs because it's super document heavy. So now we're looking at different types of companies. AI2 in 23, we really double down on this vision around application layer, vertical application layer, which at that time I think was pretty controversial because of our heritage, from AI2, from a research institution. Lots of people thought we were crazy to go after application layers at that time. But I think we were proven very much right in terms of where the value accrues for startups, for founders in particular. Our thesis was that, the foundation model companies, right, at the time were maybe like 60, 70% good enough at solving customer problems. We thought that they would definitely improve, right, up to like 80, maybe 85%. But then the last mile, very much, still that created value and space for startups to come in and deliver that. But the only way that startups could do that was to focus on vertical applications and go deep, rather than trying to create horizontal layers that then would get eaten up, right, by both the vertical and by the foundation models. That was our thesis then. We still lean into that, but we just have to look for slightly less obvious applications and areas.
So it sounds to me like your thesis was really formed by your time building these B2C mobile applications and kind of seeing that change. And then now you're kind of, I guess, seeing the second part of that wave. And how has that shaped the way you look for founders? Because especially because, AI2 invests at the pre-seed round, right? Or incubator pre-seed level. So how has that shaped
I would say even earlier than pre-seed, like a solo founder with a seed of an idea.
Like the very early, like as early as you can, right? So how has that shaped what you look for in founders?
I came into AI2 thinking that I was going to invest in AI B2C companies. I have done almost no B2C companies in AI. And I think I'm still on this curve, but basically I think of two things when it comes to B2C. One is the consumer experience. B2C, I think, has the highest expectations for consumer experience, right? Consumers, even though they're not willing to pay. That's the other curve, right? They're not willing to pay, but they have extremely high expectations for your product. And especially in the early days of AI, where there's still token costs and it's actually pretty difficult to build good product, it was just not a good fit. And this is actually the opposite, I think, from the mobile era, where there's many, many consumer applications. There was also, built-in distribution from the iPhone, the App Store. In this case, with AI, right, there's no distribution advantage for startups. So there's many reasons why I think I haven't invested in consumer yet. But I do think from an application layer perspective, I did bring some of my experience, especially as a founder, getting to know industries that I was not familiar with. Like I was just a college student, so I had no industry experience, but I had to get up to speed very quickly on spaces like health, right, fitness, and then prop tech, real estate, mortgage. And I think for me, I look for founders that if you've had industry experience, you better have some nuanced, maybe controversial, non-obvious opinions about that space, right? If you've worked in it, you really should have those opinions. If you have not worked in that industry, I'm looking for founders that can very quickly get up to speed and have an almost obsessive level of just needing to understand the truth around the industry from first principles. If you don't have that, it is very difficult to catch up with the people that do have the industry experience. On the flip side, the people with industry experience often, if you're not looking critically at your own industry and having these nuanced opinions, that's also going to be hard for you to stand out as a founder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure you see hundreds of founders a year. Is there anything that makes you kind of automatically be like, this is going to be a pass for us?
I have a lot of, I think, standard answers to that, but I think probably this depth, this obsession around industry and getting to know the truth, that is my number one gauge for a founder. That might be less obvious. Otherwise, I look for the standard things, right? Like speed and hustle and being able to build, technical prowess, all of that.
Do you have any controversial opinions there?
Let's see, any controversial opinions? I mean, I cut my teeth in SF, and I think I still think of myself very much as an SF-style founder versus maybe a Seattle-style founder. So this would not be controversial at all in SF, but maybe would be controversial here in Seattle.
This is interesting.
Well, when I first came to Seattle, it was after GymPact, right? And I hadn't yet started Loftium, but I was starting to think about the space. I consider myself a pretty grizzled veteran founder, right?
Okay.
I had led a company to profitability. I'd raised with like top tier VCs in SF. At the time, I think I was 27, and I felt very old. 27, I think, is pretty old to run a consumer company, which is why then I went into prop tech home buying startup, which was age appropriate.
Right, because when you're 27, you're starting to think about that.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So I guess the thing that might be controversial in Seattle is I came to Seattle and I was pretty shocked at the backgrounds of Seattle founders. People were way older, usually in their 40s or 50s.
Lots of those, yeah.
I went into a startup event and I had walked straight out because I thought I was in the wrong place. Like I walked in and I literally thought I was at, I don't know, like a convention of like accountants or lawyers or something. Everyone was in a button down. I had not seen a button down for years. So, I just think that the profile of founders, especially in the age of AI, maybe starts to look very different. I still think the founders with that depth of industry experience, that matters. But the speed, right, that you have to build and iterate and hustle, I think that advantages a lot of young founders today.
Okay. In Seattle?
In Seattle too, like everywhere.
This is actually a good kind of like pivot point to talk about something we talked about with Aviel as well, which is how do you feel about like the Seattle like VC ecosystem or startup ecosystem versus what's going on down NSF or Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully Aviel and I agree on this. I mean, both of us probably, like I definitely saw the gaps here in Seattle. When I was a founder, basically I went down to SF to network and hang out with people, and then I came back to Seattle to go heads down with my team and build. And I think that's great if you already have that network, right? I had flown up to, and I still was splitting time between SF and Seattle at the time. I think it's very detrimental if you are a first-time founder or you don't have that network. And that, I think, is the piece that I think is missing in Seattle is we have a lot of tech talent, like great developers, including AI developers. Very few people even know a founder, right? Like most people can know friends who are working in big tech. Very few, right, have any type of intersection with the founder community. And the way that founders think about everything, right, founder culture, like how do you think about risk? Like how do you think about getting to the truth or like building? Like what part should be MVP and what part should be actually scalable? There's so many nuances to founder culture that I think that's missing. And I think if we can bring that more, like I'm not worried about technical ability at all, right? Beyond just fundraising. Fundraising is a part of it, right? Like how to speak to VCs. But the core part is really like, how do you build a product in the early stages that de-risks your company enough that VCs are willing to bet on it? That's all the pre-work before you ever speak to a VC. And I think that type of knowledge and nuance is missing. Do you feel like that is something that we can like teach? Yes, absolutely. But maybe not in the classic, like sit in the classroom and learn. I think it's about spending time with founders, like real founders, right? They're building real companies, not just like people that want to be founders. I think this is a key reason why I wanted to start AI House. Also, foundations, why Aviel wanted to start foundations. I think we saw the same exact problem. And there's many ways to go about it, right? For us, it's about having all of our AI2 Seattle startup founders in one place so that there's kind of this core of activity in people who maybe have a little bit more knowledge and guidance and know what they're doing, especially the companies that are further along in their journey. Like at AI House, we have Yoodli, which just announced their Series B. $40 million. Their CTO, Derek, come and join our roundtables where we're talking about how to hire your first non-founder engineers, right? Especially AI engineers versus full stack engineers. Like that expertise is so valuable to our founders. And I think the more that we can create these type of serendipitous moments where you're getting tidbits from other founders that are experienced, that might trigger the new founders to then think about the things that are missing, do more research, right? Have those conversations. And that's how I learned. Frankly, I knew nothing moving to SF, and having all of those random connections and conversations, you piece it together really fast. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting because John Turrow also talked to me about like this kind of like having people be there, being able to see people and emulate them as part of like the technical community is something that he found really important as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna switch pace here a little bit. What has been your most like successful investment so far? You don't have to name the company, but like maybe like give us a description.
Can I just say Yoodli because I just talked about
fair. That. Yeah, Yoodli was very good. That's fair.
I mean, I think we have it's a hard comparison because we have all spectrum of stages, right? Yoodli's Series B. We have people that just started, so it's hard to compare. And also, I want to protect the privacy of the founders. Sure. It's also hard to pick your favorite child. So, because
your model actually, you guys don't do like a wide spread of investment. So your model is much more, you work closely with people, so it's harder.
Yeah. For us, each of the partners only works as about 5 companies per year. Yeah. So we're really all in, and we get very biased, right? We go native with the founders. So it's hard to answer that. But yeah, I will say Yoodli because they are, I think, especially, like with their announcement, right? Like this Series B happened, I think 5 months after their Series A.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I saw the Series A and I was like, that was this year. And I saw the Series B and I was like, what?
And is justified if you know about their traction, the types of companies. So for those that don't know about Yoodli, it's an AI role play company. And it's now being used for sales, go-to-market training, sales enablement, all types of training within huge corporations like Google, Snowflake, Databricks, right? All the massive brands are using them at this point. And I think they're probably the leading AI role play company.
Yeah. I remember like meeting Isha back in like 2022 or something like that at like IA40, and she was like, oh, we're building this thing that helps you like do public speaking. And now it's like kind of like they've survived long enough, they've taken the market feedback, they've pivoted and all this kind of stuff. As you kind of like work more in the space, do you have opinions on what founding teams should look like? And like what would that be for you?
I do have opinions. I think for us, we really like to see one technical expert and one domain expert. Okay. And actually, this is the model.
You like teams of 2 still?
Yes. Although more and more we've been okay having a solo founder who maybe has a mix of both or is really, really spiky, like really strong in one area. I do think, with the incubator, our model, we start with one side of that, right? We typically start with a solo founder with, an idea or not. And we do a lot of matching of these types of people.
Yes, you do the EIR program.
Yep, exactly. So, some examples, right? Recently, we host this event series called Pitch Please.
Oh, yes, I love it.
Where we get founders to come and pitch in front of a crowd of engineers, actually. Yeah. We try to invite as many of the prospective, right, like technical co-founders as possible. This is, again, back to my comments around Seattle, right? Trying to get the technical talent to hear really great ideas so that they can calibrate appropriately. And then also not just hear the ideas, but hear the investor feedback, like the live Q&A of like, how do investors actually think about these ideas? Yeah. But anyways, the winner of one of our pitch pleas was a company called Mir, Danielle. And she actually did not have any tech background, but comes from the fashion world. She was at Pipe & Row. She's a buyer for them, a senior buyer. So she has this very, very specific opinion around what parts of this manual process that like you wouldn't believe the manual processes that fashion buyers go through, like screenshotting, manually typing things in. So she's very opinionated on where AI can actually offload most of that work, right, for fashion buyers. We actually recently helped introduced her to a lot of technical co-founders. She just picked a technical co-founder. Yes, I saw that. Shama, very excited, experienced founder, exited founder, who's coming back to be her CTO. And I think having both sides is extremely important, right? And I think all of these companies that have both of these co-founders benefit. On the one hand, you have someone who can actually build, and AI, it's still really hard to build good product today. There's a lot of people who say they can build things, but it's still hard. And then I think having someone like Danielle, who has both the connections to the fashion space, where she very quickly got a waiting list of customers, right? Big names in the fashion world that normally do not trust tech people.
Right.
I think that go-to-market advantage is huge right now in this world. And also the product instinct of going not surface level, right? Like if you and I looked at the fashion space, we'd probably be like level 1, oh, here's an obvious problem.
Yes.
But the industry experts can go 5 layers deeper, right? And say like, no, actually not that, not that, not that. But it's this problem that is most hair on fire and is solvable by AI and, has some kind of budget around that, right? So I think for me, I really like to have that type of power combination.
Yeah. In our current landscape of AI and startups and stuff, like how do you feel about like being a VC versus a founder?
It's a great question. People ask me this all the time.
I'm sure.
Honestly, I never set out to be a VC.
Yeah.
I had just sold my company. I was at Firehose. I was honestly pretty happy. And I think I was just doing a little bit of my own personal advising, angel investing, and I ended up kind of being pulled into this world. I met Marius when he was at Techstars, and we just met at a random happy hour, and he invited me to be a CEO in residence to mentor that cohort of CEOs. I really ended up liking that quite a lot. And then Jacob Kolker, my co-managing director at AI2, I think heard about that and then pulled me into AI2. I started spending time with the founders here and just love the founders and the taste and the culture. So for me, I wasn't going out trying to be a VC.
Yeah.
I think of myself still 90% founder, 10% VC, I think.
Okay.
And I think with the incubator, that's a nice mix because most of the time I'm spending time with the companies that we've invested in, helping them think through all of this like product strategy, hiring, getting pretty hands-on with them.
So let's go back to one of the things you were talking about was your background's kind of in these B2C consumer apps, and you thought you were going to be doing some B2C investing at AI2, but you haven't yet. And one thing you touched on earlier was this lack of advantage in building these B2C apps. So what do you think is do you think people are going to be building B2C apps? Like what's going to happen with that? And let's get your take on both like the Seattle, like how it works in Seattle, which is we're very much known for not investing in B2C apps versus maybe other places as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I think B2C AI is definitely coming, and the curves that I've been watching since I started, one is kind of just the cost, right? The cost of tokens, the cost of actually building a product. And that is coming down significantly. I think it hasn't come down as quickly as people expected, but given that true B2C customers, right, consumers are not going to pay anything, right? You think about all the like real, like ubiquitous B2C companies,
Google.
You're not relying on customers, right, to pay for that product. So I'm looking at the cost side, right, to make sure that a free product actually is sustainable. And then I'm also looking at the expectation side, right? Consumers have very high expectations. You have to be able to deliver a very high quality product at pretty much free, right? Or actually free. I think when that happens, B2C AI is going to really take off. Right now, we've seen some prosumer, right? Some iterations of B2C, and I haven't done zero B2C AI investments. I actually did one that I've been public about recently, which is a company called Stickerbox. It is a kid's AI creativity toy.
Oh, fun.
And it's essentially
I saw this.
It's a box, right? And kids
can
can speak to it and it prints a sticker of whatever the kid says. It's amazing. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and this product really resonated with me because we were doing that already with our daughter and printing things like puzzles and this is a great like basically for me, why I invest in this one and not many other B2C companies. I think the kids AI space is wide open. Like if you talk about massive spaces that is obvious for AI that has not been touched yet, if you look at kids AI, nothing, right? All of the models, like if you use ChatGPT with a child, it specifically doesn't even allow a child to talk to it. I think it recognizes some safe safeguards in place. Other AI models do allow a child to talk to it, but at least a 3 or 4-year-old, right, cannot use ChatGPT. And I think there is reasons for that, but then that opens up the landscape, right, for companies specifically dedicated to this. I think the other part is this is actually a physical product, and the co-founders, the CTO comes from Anthropic, so AI safety, especially for a kids product, very important. The CEO is an exited founder who previously started a company that did have physical goods. So he had connections to actually be able to build a physical product in a very difficult, right, tariff-infused world. So there's some built-in advantages, defensibility around this product over others.
Okay. So is your like opinion basically that like AI models aren't good or cheap enough to do B2C right now?
I think there's always exceptions, right? Like Stickerbox is a DALL-E model. It's actually really cheap. The cost is not the issue. And the experience is very good, right? But I think you kind of have to be constrained and be creative, right? Like it's not like they are creating, right, like futuristic, like top tier art or anything, right? This is like stickers for children.
Yes.
So I think there will be a wave where consumer AI will be free and ubiquitous and super high quality, but I don't think we're there quite yet.
Okay. So Stickerbox is like, B2C, but it's like a physical product. So what about like software applications? Because, people usually don't pay for them and they don't like to pay for them.
Yeah, I mean, outside of ChatGPT, I think it's pretty hard to find a successful AI consumer company right now. And I do think, right, it's really about, willingness to pay, right? Stickerbox and these physical products kind of hack that, consumer tendency to not pay for software by adding a hardware component, which is part of why I think there's defensibility here. And why this moment, right, you can build a profitable AI company and consumer with a physical product. I do see a future where, you can imagine the models will just get better and they will get cheaper, and it might become so insignificant in terms of cost that you can suddenly have a ubiquitous, like a Google, right, like Facebook, right, type of product where you're not in terror that you have like billions of people using your product because of all the costs. And I do think also that the product experience will get good enough that you can build something great, right? But if you think about all the free people using ChatGPT, that's just a cost.
They're losing money.
Right? So you can do that if you're OpenAI, but most other people don't have that ability.
What do you think about SaaS? Where do you think SaaS is going? Like this was like the big wave of the last 10 years in terms of startups, I guess, like after mobile, it's been SaaS. Where do you think that's going?
Yeah, I think the hyperbole around the death of SaaS has been maybe like a little bit too much. And I remember this because in 2023, I actually had a bunch of friends who had invested years at building these products. And I think they deeply regretted investing in the technology side versus the go-to-market. So, there is some truth to it. But at the same time, I really don't think that companies have been very quick to change up how they think about their purchasing patterns, right? There's some attempts at, like eliminating SaaS, right? Chamath is doing his consulting, right? We'll build everything for like 90% of the features for 10% of the cost. I don't think that's really taken off as much as people expected. So yeah, I think SaaS will still be here. I just think it probably looks a little bit different. People are starting already to expect more functionality, not willing to pay quite as much, maybe not willing to be stuck in as long of contracts because there's more competition and software building and feature building is getting easier. But I don't think it's a night and day, like today SaaS is dead.
Sure, okay. So early on in both like the .com and like the mobile and SaaS era, the whatchamacallit, MLOps, whatever, there's been like a few companies that are kind of like these like breakout early companies, and then there's always people who are fast followers. Is there anything in the Gen AI space, I guess, that you think people shouldn't be building anymore?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have to think about this a lot because as an incubator, we're starting so early, right? And it will typically take our founders some time to put the team together and fundraise. So there's a lot of spaces that are just inundated at this point, right? I mentioned the companies that you could build in 2023, right? You could build a sales AI company, right? Like an SDR company.
AI SDR.
And you definitely shouldn't be building that in 2025.
Right.
Not because you can't build it. You can probably build it much easier than in 23. But if you need investment, right? All the VCs have placed their bets already. So you're going to be conflicted out of all the major investors, and you just won't have capital to be able to win that race. And also those folks are years ahead of you, right? And if they're smart and focus on go-to-market, right, the technology is kind of caught up to a point where they're just going to be so far ahead of you.
Is there anything you think shouldn't be disrupted by AI? Not that it can't, but it shouldn't.
I think one of the really tricky areas is around learning. That's something that we've been thinking about recently. What is the role of technology in learning? I actually have a friend who is an exit founder in the edtech space, and her hot take, I won't take credit, is basically she doesn't think that technology really should do any of the teaching.
She doesn't think technology should do any of the
none of the teaching. Like, she thinks that, especially for younger children, right? Maybe like college or high school is a little bit different. But there's a very human, essential part of how we learn, right? And we learn much better from other humans.
Oh, definitely.
And this also comes in with the AI house, right? How do you learn to be a founder, right? I don't think being taught that information is the way that we absorb that information best. I think we actually are very good inductive thinkers, especially when we're younger, at just getting a fire hose of random tidbits and piecing it together for ourselves. I do think there's something in that, right, around learning from other people. And if you remove all of that, are we able to absorb as much, have as much nuance, right? Have as much context and have this 3D understanding of a problem versus, a more shallow understanding. So her opinion is AI should go in the background, do all the workflow stuff so that the teachers can just focus on the student to teacher relationship. It's one of the areas we've been thinking of.
Okay. Or what do you think about people who are trying to build foundation models right now? Because there's more than just nuanced labs. There's one called Roof. I can't remember what it's called. They just raised $15 million earlier this year. It starts with an R. I can't remember the name at this point.
Now, the people that invested in a lot of foundation models in 23, in hindsight, it's a very challenging road, right? And we knew this, I think, because we had team members that had built and trained foundation models.
When did Olmo come out?
Before 23. 21, 22.
Okay.
It's been constantly improved. Basically, I think we had team members that had experience training foundation models. Very few VCs, I think, had anyone on their team with that type of experience. And I think, the reasons why we didn't want to invest in foundation models is you need a very specialized skill set. There's a small group of people, right, that can actually train a model well. I think you need tons of GPUs. We knew this very early because our founders that were in the foundation model space, right, pre-GPT, struggled, right, as soon as the ChatGPT moment happened. It was super hard. So even though we had really talented people that had that background, could train models, they were struggling to get access to the GPUs to actually be able to do that training that they needed to. And then you have all the resources on top of it, right? Can you actually get all the investment to be able to pay for those very expensive GPUs? I think a lot of people talk about data, but data is kind of secondary, right? We just think of data as another cost and part of this training. Usually you have to pay for data, but it's actually much cheaper and easier to get in many cases than the people and the GPUs. So it's very challenging, and I don't think it's gotten any easier in 2025.
Yeah.
That being said, we have been opportunistic and made some, foundation model bets. Vercept is one of them.
Okay.
They're a computer use company.
Yeah.
Founders came out of AI2. We knew them very well.
Yeah.
So that was a much more a team bet.
Yeah.
And now they are creating a product, but they're creating a product and training the model at the same time, which is difficult. But I think, for us, it's not that we wouldn't do anything in the foundation model layer.
Sure.
I think it just has to be extremely thoughtful and the right types of people.
Yeah. Any final pieces of advice that you would give someone who's starting a company in the AI space today?
For founders who already have started a company, I think the biggest thing that I thought was intuitive, that I realized is not that intuitive on the VC side, I think founders should be less worried about looking at real issues in their company.
Okay.
And it's hard, right? Like early stage founders, like you're trying to hype people up, right? You're trying to raise money, you're trying to recruit people to do a crazy thing, quit their job and take a huge, massive salary cut to come and work for you. So sometimes I think founders get too much into that hype mode and they don't look critically at the actual risks or issues, right? And this could be like team issues, it could be like technical feasibility issues, it could be customer, right? Like, do your customers actually have this problem? Is the poll real? I would encourage founders to not be afraid to separate out these two things, right?
Okay.
You can have your hype and the story, but there's a reality, and you need to be able to face that reality and have a close group of people that you trust to actually talk through the reality.
Okay.
Founders that don't do that may be able to hype raise, but at some point you will have to face the reality, right?
How do you pick that group of people?
For me, when I was a founder, I had a personal advisory board, right? So these were informal people. They did not have equity in my company. They were just people that I trusted who would tell me the truth and that I could call and I would know if it's a true emergency, right? They're super busy people, but they would call me back same day and we can talk through the reality. And it's actually nice that they were not formally involved. They were not investors. They were not tied with the company.
Right.
Typically, there are founders that were maybe one step fundraising or hiring ahead of me.
Okay.
So people, I won't name names, but there are some very important people that helped me through critical moments, especially Loftium, right? We went through the pandemic. We were a travel, affordability, housing startup and had to go through layoffs, had to rebuild our business during the pandemic. So I highly encourage founders to have those people in their camp that they can actually trust and address the reality.
If you want to hear more really insightful talks like this, either in the form of fireside chats, panels, or keynotes, make sure that you sign up for Seattle Startup Summit, which the link will be below, seattlestartupsummit.com. And Yifan will be there as well.
Yes.